Welcome back, campers. I see you're back to hear more stories. Tonight's tale is about a young man who makes a great mistake. He stumbles upon a town full of fears that will make him start screaming and coughing up blood. I call this story Frostbite. Everyone in the town of Blairstown, New Jersey, thought their small little town was going to become Little Alaska overnight. The weatherman reported a heavy snowfall earlier on the news and urged everyone to stay inside. The snow and coldness was harsh. The wind was sharp as blades and would rip blisters into your skin if you were outside, not to mention the slippery sidewalks and roads. Perhaps Blairstown will become an amusement park this snowy evening if folks decided to come outside. Residents will have a choice of sliding down the sidewalk, bumper cars if you're courageous enough to drive on the black ice, and last but not least, ice skating in your backyard. Yes, this was one of the worst winter days ever, but perhaps it should stay that way. You see, I was told that Blairstown has a vampire issue. Maybe this frosty day will freeze the vampire's blood, or maybe a large glacier of ice would cover their coffins and they'll never cause terror on this town again. The vampire attack started last July. A few victims were found with their bodies drained of blood. The police thought it was a serial killer on the loose until the autopsy showed the victims had fang marks on their neck. As a result, the town created a mandatory curfew at sundown. However, despite the curfew, victims still continued to pile up. CJ, who had just gotten off the train, didn't know anything about the curfew. He had just gotten off the last train going into town and out. He pulled his pea coat closer to his face and began walking into the downtown area. He was here to visit his sister, who he hasn't spoken to in a few months. The sun was beginning to set as he approached the downtown area. A store owner was closing his shop. His fingers felt numb, and he wanted to go home and run his hands under hot water. Of course, the first few seconds would be painful, but eventually his hands would feel toasty. His thoughts were interrupted when he saw CJ walking down the street, who had his head down and hands in his pocket. The store owner started to speak. He noticed his breath and unconsciously put his hands in his pockets. Hey, young man, you might want to get inside very soon. Yes, I will. It's very cold outside. No, son. Vampires are in this town, and they come out at sundown. Vampires? And let me guess, the abominable snowman lives near City Hall, right? CJ walked away, and the store owner looked at him and shook his head. The snow wasn't as heavy. It now fell very lightly. As it parachuted from the sky, CJ looked up and realized he'd been walking what seemed like forever. He tried to think about the term he once heard in class. His teacher in elementary school coined a term, but CJ couldn't remember what it was. Maybe his memory was frozen because of the low temperature. The term was on the tip of his tongue. It was difficult to say because his voice remembered the sound, but his mind didn't remember the word. However, the thoughts started to melt and the word freeze tag came to mind. Freeze tag is the cold weather tagging you or touching you so deeply while you're outside, time seems to freeze and you lose track of time. CJ continued to walk, not knowing where to go. He forgot where his sister lived and his phone was dead. Luckily, he had his charger. Lucky for him, he found a small restaurant. It was the only restaurant open. It was a pizza place. CJ was hungry and needed to charge his phone. Kill two birds with one stone, he thought. He went inside of the restaurant. When he walked inside, the warmth immediately made him feel comfortable. There was a large crowd eating and drinking. CJ thought about the strange man who warned him about vampires and laughed. The waiter sat him down and CJ handed his phone to the stranger, asking him to charge his phone. The waiter took his phone and came back with the menu. The menu was shaped like a bat. The name printed on top of the menu was Castle's Pizza. Can I get you anything to drink, sir? Yes, I'm thirsty. Bring me your best soda. Certainly, sir. CJ flipped through the menu. As CJ was waiting for a soda, he decided to order some tomato soup. The soup would be hearty and give him enough warmth to go back outside and face the cold. When the waiter came back, he ordered his soup. The waiter gave him his drink and CJ spat it out. This soda is salty. When the waiter brought CJ his soup, he was planning to devour it but tasted salt as well. Hey, you guys used too much salt in this soup, CJ yelled. The people in the restaurant turned around and looked at him. The waiter came back and said, Sir, you're acting mighty strange. You aren't from here, are you? No, I'm... He heard a noise, the sound of a curtain being pulled back. He looked towards it, and the noise made CJ stop, and he couldn't finish his sentence. His words were trapped in his throat. There was a mirror on the wall. He only saw his reflection. He tried to get up and run out of the restaurant when the store owner he saw earlier in the evening blocked the door and said, What's wrong, sir? I thought you didn't believe in vampires.